Hey Rui, how's it going?
Good AJ. How about you?
Yeah, good. Virgin. I'm never sure whether I'm going to make it there or, more importantly, back.
Oh, stop your whinging.
Fair enough. Hey, how did you go putting together the stuff from the NSW session?
Yeah, no problems. What about you?
Huh. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I've done a video thing.
You what?
A video? I'm concerned that I'm sounding a bit like a broken record. Thought it might help to present a same, but different spin on the message.
You're nuts.
Maybe. I'm just really keen to see some results and deliver to the business. Morning everyone. John, are we ready to go?
Sure AJ, ready when you are.
Okay, given the format of this presentation, if you could please jot down any questions that you have as we're going through, it will allow me to get through everything on time and still leave time for us to go through your questions at the end. Now, although I've obviously got some ideas and opinions of my own, I thought it was important to try and capture the perspective from the Maxis UK team and Maxis NSW project. So, I used some of our recent UK Scrum sessions to cover off some of the more important strategic initiatives that they thought needed some action. Initially I planned to facilitate just one session, but the team obviously had a bit that they wanted to discuss, so we ended up having 3 sessions. I've then taken the liberty to do a little post-production video editing and reconstructed the video into more logical groupings, loosely following the development life cycle whilst also adding in some of the key findings from the Maxis NSW process review. Here's what was discussed.
Hello?
Hey Chris, how are you doing?
Yeah, good thanks AJ.
Okay, so, as we discussed the other day, we're trying to understand what things you'd like to see changed or improved on, significantly how you think we should go about these changes. Although this will be a free-flowing session, perhaps we can start by talking about requirements and scope. Who would like to kick off?
I will. We are getting better with specifications, both with the new specifications we are creating and the old ones that we're updating and migrating to the new template. Yeah, Heinz is right, the requirements are tedious, but end up being hugely beneficial. I think within the Talar IS team we were going okay, but specifications are all too often non-existent, don't provide enough detail, or change significantly partway through development and are then never updated. Report specifications need production data examples, which we are getting better at in the UK and are also starting to get similar results in other teams such as Mike Gray's team, which seems to have some real achievers.
Thanks Hinsey and Chris. I agree, the push on specifications that we have been doing in the UK has already started yielding good results. If anything, Andy Todd is not being given enough time to perform his BA role, something the UK need to resolve.
It's certainly better having the specifications in SharePoint rather than VSDS. However, we could do this better again if we use administrative keywords on versions and translate these into more usable views.
Good pickup, Evan. We could certainly do some more in this space. I'll put an action on myself to get the team site back up to scratch. We can then work on the metadata and associated views to smarten this up.
In an ideal world we should have our backlog full as chanted with supporting functional specifications.
Thanks Hinsey, I agree, that's something that we could work towards with the UK.
We should be looking into time chunking some technical debt given we are currently only using a 5-hour estimated day.
I agree Chris, especially whilst the production system is relatively stable and there is not too much support work coming through the validation cycles. That's probably a good leader into development cycle. The way I see it, we've got a few areas to cover in this section: estimating, development process, architecture and design, development methodology and branching and merging. So, any comments on estimating?
Sure, generally as across the floor, we're not learning. Hero estimating isn't as prevalent, but developers are still aggressive with their dates as well as appearing to have dates imposed on them, so the issue of scrambling for deadlines is still relevant, inevitably leaving functionality behind. Chris is right, but the estimates we are doing in TALRIS are good. However, tests need a better, more comfortable estimate process.
Thanks, Hinsey. All right, what about the development process?
We rely heavily on TFS in terms of logging bugs, CRs and picking up work items for development, yet we still use spreadsheets to create developer cards and manage our sprint, calculate burn down. We need to get smarter and find a TFS add-on that allows us to do all of this inside TFS to reduce our administration overhead.
Scrum is working for us in UK, especially when we get regular close contact with the business. However, without an embedded tester, we don't have a fully implemented Scrum solution, although the requirements up front at present are good.
The overall iteration length and long time supporting releases and validations whilst trying to manage concurrent development releases is hurting us. We need to release to the integration environment more regularly and then get quick constructive feedback from the business.
Thanks guys, so a little more work in this area needed. However, we can move on the integration releases now though, and can even work on shortening the cycle times. Now, what was next? Architecture and design.
Maxhost is easily the most complicated framework I've ever been involved with. Although written in .NET, it's unlikely an average .NET developer joining us fresh would be productive in Maxhost in any acceptable time frame with the current level of guidance.
With your skills, Chris, that's a concern to hear. So, more documentation, induction training, etc.
Yeah, IJ, we need architecture diagrams, technical standards, governance on frameworks and patterns, documented technical processes. Makes me look bad. Need to include more art design. Not enough thought or effort goes into understanding how the final AI is used in real scenarios by an end user. Some screens are just plain confusing, whilst others aren't designed with the end process in mind. Maxhost and MaxWeb are still riddled with poor partly now manifesting itself through trying to keep things consistent, so poor design is just repeated. Further to this, we need more flexibility to match developers' specializations to tasks. Business logic is implemented in each client via product of poor services, not application function. Need to consider a cross-application validation approach, C# versus JavaScript. OJBECs also need refinement to achieve better bandwidth tuning.
Thanks, Chris. Evan, what about developer communication?
Design group should be at a higher level. All members of design group already have too much work on. If attending a meeting, need to go with approach that I have a problem and here is a proposed solution. There used to be a once-a-month hallway developer session. People would stop and listen to what was going on. Hinsey is right. There also used to be a team-led meeting, but it wasn't really working. Ended up being more of a what each person was doing session. Apparently Andre was trying to make an enterprise architect team, but didn't get much traction. Strange for a company this size.
Golden Casket used to do okay in this space. I know Fiona's Caldwell's was trying to promote some common source code at one stage. I'll find the details and forward them on.
Sharing the real information amongst developers, a forum to present latest tech, wins/losses, is a difficult thing to do. We have enough difficulty within our teams, let alone other groups. A poor presentation can undersell the IT, a good presentation can risk overselling. On top of this, there can be a natural defensive resistance to change and sharing. To work, it needs to have a balance between openness without boasting and structure.
Okay, finally, what about branching and merging?
I would estimate we lose about 10 to 20% of our time merging and the subsequent stabilization. Compounding the problem, it is becoming so complicated it's fast becoming a specialist task. Absolutely, we should be able to automate a lot of this.
I agree, Evan. We should see if we can bring some automated builds etc. into our next release. Anything else?
We don't currently use enough metrics for anything we do. We need to start measuring in basal innings so we can track performance. Tolerius has highlighted that no one really understands what kind of artificial limits exists as a result of architectural design. A great example is that while two key tables had approximately 12 million and 80 million rows in them, Max Gaming experienced serious performance issues. Everyone agrees that from a pure database perspective, these numbers shouldn't represent a problem, yet the sum of all Max Gaming pieces disagree.
Okay, we've covered a fair bit of detail around the development component of the life cycle. What about handover, in particular handover to test? We can cover handover to production support when we talk about the release process.
Preparing a release interval is a very time-consuming process between the documentation and the creation of the DB different scripts. There must be a way to streamline this, as version 1 always seems to end up being an epic adventure and most teams end up missing deadlines. Something we avoid in the UK team by cutting off development early. Deployment process to the environments is currently far too manual. At this point we came to testing. We are concerned that testing still isn't quite up to scratch, not through Genesis' lack of effort, just needs more automation and sense of ownership with a release. We possibly dilute their ownership by not engaging with them enough, but we are making a big combined effort to change that. The process of raising a bug, then a developer action, then a new bug because the developer action failed, etc. is still not working. It doesn't only apply to test either. Inability to follow a bug or CR from creation to release is ridiculous. Specific to test, the term validated for indicating the testers have finished looking at a developer action is not helpful either. It should have a pass or fail status. We used to receive a lot of bugs with not enough details, however, this is improved. An enormous amount of time is lost trying to find/create comparable data that can then be used by the developer to reproduce the bug in an environment that can be debugged effectively. Whilst we have fixed some issues, physical limits haven't been resolved. Now do we test the gradual degradation? Maybe it doesn't exist, no idea really, of one release to the next. We don't benchmark important functionality, so it's hard to determine if we improved/hindered actual user time. There is still room for improvement that the testing team could do, need more commitment and buy-in, not through lack of effort, just a current skill gap. Having testers embedded in the Scrum teams for a number of days per week would help bridge this gap. Test automation will also go a long way towards where we need to get to, probably need to get some more development involvement to help get this working. In simple terms, the process is currently far too manual. No reason why nightly builds shouldn't be able to deliver everything we need for a release each night. Not a lot of manual intervention required, it's more the manual time to checking, backups, etc. We could automate the UK releases, however this will not work so well once we start merging with other jurisdictions. The automation shouldn't be limited to SMAs either, it should apply across the total build. We should also be able to auto-deploy, which would then allow an embedded tester to work from fresh builds each day.
I understand that we are also struggling with training a lot of TSOs in the release process at the moment, and we would prefer to teach a couple of SME-type people to then share the knowledge with the support team. Our prod support should be via SDE, however, the UK are likely to have a concern re the likely poor timeliness of this process. During the meantime, we are using our group email account approach to manage most of the Maxis type support issues, which, although not ideal, is having other knowledge sharing benefits in both hemispheres. The general consensus was to have a look at SDE and see if we could tailor it better to suit us and our preferred use of the tool.
Isolated teams. At any given point there are 4-6 development teams on the floor, and for the most part they are somewhat cliquey. I spent the first few months quite shocked at how little each group interacted, and it was pretty easy to pick up on the low level of animosity some teams/people have towards each other. With all the team/project restructuring that has occurred over the last few months, this has faded a little, but there is still some thinly veiled niggling going on. I think our growth has dissolved this issue. Disproportionate team numbers, developers and testers. focusing on Tolerius for this one, but we have had far too much work for one BA and one tester.